In this video, I will show you how to place the concrete piers that support the outside deck and the front porch area. I will show you how to create the annotations to do the layout, as well as I will show you how to create a garage slab. So to start off with, what we need to do in Revit is we are going to now start working off of the foundation plan. So I'm going to very quickly here go to the foundation plan, and I suspect that I might have some view range issues happening. And if that's the case, we will go ahead and fix what we need to fix. So a couple of things you'll note here really quickly is that well, first off, I'm going to go ahead and change my scale to 1/4 of an inch. I noticed that was off because the little bubbles on the end of my grid lines were so large. So once I change that to 1/4, those grid lines will go a little bit smaller. I'm going to go ahead and highlight grid line 1. I'm going to check mark those boxes because if you go back to the actual plan we're working off of, that is how those things are actually looking. It looks like my grid line B is okay, but grid lines A, B, and C, we need to put the bubbles up there. And then the final thing here is I want to uncheck the box here so my little bubble on grid line C disappears at that point. The other observation I'm making here is my footings do not appear, nor does my foundation bearing wall or that center footing. And so that's simply because my view range is not set correctly. So over here in the properties window, once again, I'm going to scroll down. It's about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way down. You'll see view range. I'm going to click on there to edit, and my view depth, I want that view depth to go to the level below top of footing. Now I'm going to hit apply here, but I doubt I'm going to see anything happening here other than my bearing wall came into play. That makes sense. The reason is it's going down to the top of footing, but for me to actually see those footings, I need to be a little bit below. So I'm going to try to get that view depth a little bit lower than that by simply typing in a -0 foot 2 inches will give me plenty. Go ahead and apply that, and you'll see all those footings show up. So the other thing you're going to notice here really quickly is that as those footings came in, our line types are not correct. So I'm not going to take all of the time at the moment, but again, you can go to modify line work. My hidden is still there, and you can go around and change all of those line styles. I'm going to actually go ahead and do it right now. It will go fairly quickly. So get that all the way around the garage now. Make sure I don't do the actual foundation wall. Okay, I think I got them all. Other than my my isolation footings, which I'll just take a second here and also change those line types one last time. Okay, so now that we get that part done, let me go back to our plan. And what I want to do is I want to actually lay out some lines here. Now you'll notice we have some grid lines. And these grid lines have the little bubble, and then we have these center lines. And if you look at my line selection here, these are also center lines, but you'll note they're a little bit different. The long dash is shorter than the grid lines, and the short dash is a little bit shorter. So we actually created these using a center line and not a grid line. And so we're going to just follow suit right there and do the same thing. So I'm really quickly here going to come up here to my annotate. And while I'm in annotate, I'm going to select this tool that's called detail line. And once I select that tool, I can come over here to my line style, and I'm going to select my center line. Okay, I'm going to go back to the plan here really quickly. I'm going to roughly just put in 5 of these lines, and it looks like I got 2 vertical and 3 horizontal. So I'm going to put a line here. I'm going to put a line here. I'm going to put one here, here, and I'll put another one right there. Okay, so I've got the 5 lines, and in no way, shape, or form are they in the right location, and that's what we'll work on next. So again, going back to the plan, what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to set up some dimensions. I'm going to come off of the face of the foundation. I'm going to come to my layout line at this point, and this point, and then I'm going to come off of my grid line C, and I'll pull one going the other direction. So let's just get some dimensions in there so we can start getting these reference lines in the correct position. So I'm on annotate. I'm going to go ahead and hit line. So again, coming off of the face of the foundation wall, center line, and center line. And I'm going to go ahead and just close that dimension out. And then right here, I'm going to go from the grid line, center line, center line. Okay, so my 2 vertical lines, they're going to be positioned relative to grid line C, and my 3 horizontal lines are going to be positioned relative to the face of foundation wall. So if I go back and look at my plan here, it looks like we've got 7'10" and then 7'6", 7'6". So I'm going to come right here on this first line, and so I got to select the line, and then I can move that line to 7'10". Now I want to move this middle line relative to that first line to 7'6" inches, and then I will do this third line to 7'6" inches. Okay, so those 3 horizontal lines should now be positioned correctly. And next, I will go ahead and we're going to look at our dimensions that come 13'6". Now, I don't have a line coming through the center, but I do know that 7'6" and 7'6" is 15 feet. So I will position my first center line 13'6", and then I will go to 15 foot. So 13'6", and then we're going to go 15 foot. Okay, so those should be in the correct place now. I want to go back to my foundation plan and take a look here. It actually looks like this lower one, we need to actually extend that line out, clear past grid line D. And then our other pier footings right here are offset the grid line. Okay, so having looked at that really quickly, I'm just going to come right to this point, and I'm going to select that line, grab the little blue dot, and I'm going to drag that clear out to that point. Okay, so my layout pretty much is where I need to have it. So let's go ahead and let's import our pier footing, and I will show you how to create the correct height off of those. So To do this, what we are going to do is I'm going to come up here to structure, and then we're going to select a column. It's going to be a structural column. Now, I believe on this template, there is a wide flange column that is loaded by default. That will not quite achieve what we're trying to achieve here. So we're going to have to go to our US Imperial Library, and we will have to find the correct concrete column. So here we have our wide flange shaped column. If I click on the down arrow here, you'll notice that's the only object there. So to load a family, up on the ribbon, you'll see the icon here for load family. Go ahead and click on that, and it will open the dialog box showing your library. Now, in my case right here, because I was in the structural foundation last time I entered this, it appears that's where it took me. I'm going to come right up to this arrow. It's not going to take me to the last back. So I'm going to actually click on the down arrow here. And then I'm just going to go up one folder to US Imperial. And then I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look for structural column. Nested in the structural column is our concrete. And I'm just going to highlight the first family type here. You can see in our preview window what that family type looks like. I'm just going to use my arrow keys. I'm going to just keep going down until the second to last one. Here's a concrete round column. That is what we want to use to make these concrete piers. So I'm going to go ahead and say open. Once this opens, we'll see what size and diameters that we have. Let me bring up the actual plan here, because we're going to be creating this Pier 1 and this Pier 2, which is 8-inch diameter, and it is a 16-inch diameter. You'll notice right here also that these are 2 feet tall. Okay. What we're going to do right here is, well, what I'm going to explain is the depth of these we're going to assume is the same height as top of footing, and then they're going to go up 2 feet. Now, in the last video, I told you to make those foundation walls 1 foot 11.5 inches. So we're going to have to do an offset of a 1/2 inch to actually make those 2 feet tall, but we'll come back to that in just 1 second. Okay, so here we go. Back in Revit, and you can see I've got a 12-inch diameter round column. Looks like I've got 18, 24, and 30. If you recall on the plan, we need an 8-inch diameter and we need a 16-inch diameter. So we're going to have to go ahead and create both of those. So let's start with the 8-inch diameter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Edit Type. You guys should start seeing a pattern here. Same method of creating family types each time. We'll hit Duplicate. I'm going to go ahead and change my 12 inches to 8 inches. And then under Dimensions, B is my diameter. I will need to change that to 8 inches. And then I'm going to go ahead and say OK. All right, so for me to place this 8-inch diameter, what I will need to do is select the correct constraints. So looking at this here, I am not seeing the constraints I was looking for. So I'm going to make an assumption here that we've got our depth. We want an unconnected height. We want our unconnected height. I'm just going to, for now, go in here 2 feet. And let's just go in here and I'm going to place this 8-inch column at this location right here. Now I'm curious as to where that was placed. So I'm going to go back to my three-dimensional view. And if I come out here and if I scroll around, it actually appears that it should be in the right location. I'm going to go to my right side elevation, and I can actually see that this is 2 feet, but it's coming off of the top of the foundation and it's going down. So what I'm going to do right here is I need to come back here. Okay, this is interesting because now that I've selected that, I can actually see that my base level is the foundation plan. So this gets a little tricky, but just follow along here for a second. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select my base offset being top of footing. My top level, I am going to put the foundation plan. That should be correct. My base offset should be 0. And my top offset, I am going to make at 0 foot 1/2 inch. And I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. Now, if you look at this, what it did is it actually shifted. So the bottom of my pier column is the exact same elevation as the footing. And now we're actually a 1/2 inch taller than my foundation wall, which was 1 foot 11.5 inches. So I know I have a true 2-foot pier column right there. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to show you a little trick. I've often had trouble with getting the structural components. They don't work the exact same way as the architectural. And so once I have a component like this created, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to recreate them. What I'd like to do is actually just copy them. So I'm going to go ahead and select this 8-inch diameter. And once I've done that, I'm going to come up here. I should be in my edit or modify mode. And here's my copy tool. I'm going to select that once. I'm going to go right there where the little triangle makes the midpoint. I'm going to click, and I'm going to come over to the point that I want to drop it. I'm going to click again, and it's going to save it into place. So not only did I copy the object, but I copied the parameters, the constraints that they're at, and so they would be in the same place. Now, going back to our plan view, I want to just show you a couple other things. We've got our different our P2s, which are 16-inch diameters. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to actually copy this 8-inch, and I'm going to take it over to this point. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because I've already redefined my constraints of being top of footing, going up to the foundation plan, and then a top offset of an extra 1/2 inch. That is where this P2 footing needs to appear. But what I'm going to be able to do here now is I'm going to go ahead and hit edit type. I'm going to duplicate this one, and I'm going to change this to 16 inches. Say okay. I need to change my dimension B to 16 inches or 1 foot 4 inches. And I'm going to go ahead and say okay. What I'm doing in this one step is I'm substituting that 8-inch with the 16-inch, and I've maintained those constraints that I've set up. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to copy this one over to this point. I'm going to hold my control key down and highlight both of those P2 footings. I'm going to copy both of those down to this point here. I need to take a look at my drawing and see that I've got one here at the midpoint that's an 8-inch. So I'm going to highlight this 8-inch. I'm going to go right to the center, and I'm just going to click and put it right there. Now I know it's not in the right location, so again, using my annotate tool, I'm going to go put in a quick dimension, and you'll notice when I get there, it'll show the center of this here, which look at that, I'm 7'6". Okay, let's just say, for example, if I didn't have that exactly at 7'6", let's just say I had dropped it there. I could drop that in and then come back here and put in that 7'6" and locate that in the correct direction or in the correct position. Okay, so it looks like I still have a couple of other piers to put in here. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, and then we've got the two P2s that are up there. So let's do this. I'm going to copy this 8-inch, and I'm just going to stick one about right here. I'm going to copy that one and bring it over about to that point. And then actually I should have brought it to about right there. And then I'm going to copy this one, bring it somewhere down like this. I still have 2 more I need to copy, but this is going to be the P2s. And I'm just going to come stick one here and copy another one over to this point. So even though I don't have these in the correct positions on the X and Y axis, I do know that in terms of the Z axis, with my base level constraints and everything, those are all in the correct position. Come back over here to my 3-dimensional drawing, and you can somewhat see that. Okay, so going back to my foundation plan, what I need to do is identify where the position of these are at. So it looks like the center of this 8-inch P1 footing is 3 3/4 inch offset of grid line D, as well as is this footing. And then from grid line 1, it looks like we're offset 3 1/4. And then when we come down here to our large ones, we're offset by 5 inches. And it looks like off of grid line 1, we've got our center dimensions. So you can see you've got all the information right there in terms of our dimensions of where to locate those items. So that's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to pull this over to the other screen so I can watch where those dimensions need to be. So first off, I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to grab my annotate and dimension tool. And I'm going to come off of grid line D and come to the center and drop that dimension. I'm also going to do the same thing here and here. Also, I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to drag it down to the other side because that's the direction that's going to need to go off of. Let's just put in a couple more dimensions. I'm going to put one in off of the center of here over to here, and I'm going to go to that grid line. And let's come off of grid line 1, and we're going to go to this point here. And then I'm going to put a dimension from grid line D to the center of those. Okay, so why don't I start off with these 2 large ones here really quickly. So if I'm looking at my dimensions from my foundation plan, this first pier footing off of grid line 1 is 8 foot 4 inches. So again, remember, you select the object to move and then you edit the location or the dimension, and then from the 8 foot 4, we've got 7 foot 4 inches. And then while I still have it here, from grid line D to the center, that was offset the grid line by 5 inches. Let's go grab that one and offset by 5 inches. And then let's come up here. If I'm looking at this one, this right here was offset 3.75 inches. And on this direction, it was 3.25 inches. Okay, our 8-inch footing right here, pier footing, that is also offset. Okay, that is offset 3.75 inches. So the only last thing that I can see here is I do not have an actual dimension for this P1. So I'm just going to go ahead and for now I'm going to need to undo that. You can see what happened there. I'd actually accidentally not selected this pier. So when I put that dimension in, it moved this pier since it was selected. Let me select the correct one here. Now I'll select that dimension and go 10 foot. And so now I've got 10 foot, and then we've got 7 foot, 2¼ inches. I'm going to move that a little bit more and just make it a little bit more center, and I'm going to go to 9 foot. So we'll just leave it something like that. Okay, so that's how you end up placing all of the pier footings. One last thing on this video and we'll be done, and that is let's place a concrete slab. So to create a concrete slab, we're going to come to our architecture tab. And in our architecture tab, we're going to select floor. And you'll see in our properties box, we'll have some floor types. Now, let me bring our drawing back over here to this screen. If you zoom in right here, what we know based on our note here, this is a 4-inch concrete slab. So if I look at my floor types, let me see if I have any concrete in here. I've got some predetermined ones, but I don't see any concrete. So I'm just going to work off of this generic 12-inch. I'm going to go to edit type. I'm going to duplicate, and I'm going to change my generic to slab on grade. And then my thickness, I'm going to change to 4 inches. So give it a description similar to that, say okay. And then we need to change our default thickness, which since it's a 4-inch slab, 0 space 4 inches will give us our correct thickness. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay. Because I'm in the edit mode of a slab, you'll notice that all this other geometry is somewhat grayed out. And you'll also notice this red X and this green check mark. Okay, we will go in and we're going to draw essentially the lines of where our slab's going to be. And then once we're done, we can go ahead and hit the green X to exit out of the mode. It accepts it, saves it, and exits out of the mode. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to actually select my line type, and I'm going to come to the inside corner of my foundation wall. Come up here to that inside corner. And then what we want to do is we actually want to bring this block out, the foundation slab, to the outside of the foundation wall where the block out is, and then we'll return it back in, come back to this inside corner. And then ultimately, we're going to come right there and I'm going to double or click. I'm going to hit escape to exit out of that. And I already see I made a mistake. I'm going to hit Control Z 1, 2 times to undo those last 2 lines. I'm going to go ahead and grab my line here. I need to bring that concrete slab through the block out at this point, and then I'll come and end at that point. All right, once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And you will see that we have a slab in here. Now you'll notice that on the drawing, that slab actually shows a concrete symbol, an architectural concrete symbol. I'm going to select this slab right here again. To grab it, you'll probably need to do it on the edge of the block out. And I'm going to go back to the edit type, go under edit, and in the categories, we are going to change that to a concrete cast in place gray. And then what I'm going to have you do is, if you see the surface pattern and background, I'm going to check or click where it says sand, and it'll give me my fill patterns. So I'm going to come up here to the top, and here's a concrete one. And I'm going to put the same thing there on my background. And then I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And when we come back here, you should see that that architectural concrete symbol now appears. Okay, one last thing, and that is I'm going to go back to the 3D model, and we'll see that the actual slab is not recessed down low enough. So I'm going to select the slab right here, and under my constraints, what I want to do is I want to change my height offset, and I'm just going to put in a -1 foot, and I'm going to drop this slab down 12 inches. So you can see when I do that, it drops the slab down 12 inches, and now we have that little concrete wall on the inside. Maybe I'm going to come back. I think that's a little bit too far. I'm going to go back a -8 inches and raise that up just a little bit. Okay, so that is how you finish creating the foundations and the slabs on the foundation plan. So that will be where I end this video. I have other videos that will take you through creating the main level floor plan, and shortly coming up, I will create additional videos that will help you go through and get all the annotations on the foundation plan correct. So when it's all said and done, your view looks exactly like this foundation view does here. Thank you.